Hey everyone, welcome to Elsewhere in the Multiverse, the comic book podcast from Melfuzz TV. And I had to do that intro 3 times because the first time I forgot what show it was completely, and then the second time I forgot what I say after Elsewhere in the Multiverse. But we're here now.
It took you 3 times last week as well. This is becoming a very, very bad habit.
Episode 5, we talk about comic books, not DC Comics, because we have a DC Comics podcast that we started a long time ago. It's up to episode 139 called Comics from the Multiverse. You can go check that out. This show is me and Connor talking about books we read from elsewhere, as the title would suggest. We are going to be talking about some Marvel books, and we got a couple of other books as well. Coming up on this week's show, we have Guardians of the Galaxy issue 1, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man issue 2, Uncanny X-Men Annual issue 1, Avengers 13, Immortal Hulk number 12, Crypt of Shadows one shot, and Star Wars 60. Plus elsewhere we have Buffy the Vampire Slayer issue 1, and we have Aliens Resistance issue 1. So there you go.
So close. You just want to blow your load already, don't you?
No. It's coming later. Buffy's got its own section on this show. I don't have to do anything right now.
You're still struggling to resist. I can see it in your face.
So that's what's coming up on the show. We spent a long time in solicits last week. This week we will not do the same. We did have a quick glance at Dark Horse and Boom, which have been up since. And there was one new issue 1 from Boom that felt worth mentioning, because Brian Azzarello's writing it. It's called Faithless. It's Brian Azzarello with art by Maria Lovett. Or, wait a minute, that's the 2 L's. How do you say that again?
Well, I mean, in Spanish, it's more of a Y than an L.
That doesn't make sense in this name, does it?
It doesn't to me, no.
Yovet?
Could be.
Yovet, maybe? Yeah. I can't speak Spanish. I don't. Anyway, so Faith sex the devil. Faith likes to dabble with magic. Her friends think it's cute and not just a little off-putting, but it's part of her charm and her warped search for purpose in a world that makes too much sense. But she's a true believer and knows there is power within her reach. She's right, of course. It just took a while for that magic, that temptation, that unknowable thing to find her. In short, Faith is bored as hell. And hell has noticed. Doesn't tell me a whole lot, actually.
Yeah, I've got the press release of the announcement here, which tells me a bit more. Boom Studios announced Faithless, an unforgettable story of self-exploration, eroticism, and maybe even love. Introduces readers to Faith, a young woman who likes to dabble in the occult. Her friends think it's... Okay, that was the bit you just said. And at the end there, it just says it's not going to be publicly previewed due to sexually explicit material, which is... oh, no, that's one of the variants by Tulalote. Okay.
Interesting.
There's a little bit of preview art here. Looks pretty good, just in the art, having a glance. So, and I like Azzarello a lot.
Mm. Do you know what was Faithless?
What?
Seasons 1 and 2 of the hit television show for the vampires.
Told you couldn't go 5 minutes without blowing your load.
Look, they gave me a comic book called Faithless.
No, they didn't. This is not anything. It's fine. You can just go past it.
Also, season 5 and 6 were Faithless too, for the record. But I went with 1 and 2 because that was before she debuted. Anyway, so we thought we'd mention that. Other than that, obviously, there's new covers for Firefly and Buffy, and then Dark Horse has got some, Black Hammer covers and stuff to look at.
Yeah, who cares?
Normal stuff. Yeah, so not much news this week, which is nice, because we're actually recording this a day earlier than normal, which means we have a bit of a tighter time schedule, which is fine, because it's actually quite a week in books, so we won't, shove tons of news in that doesn't really exist to make it feel like there's more stuff to talk about. It's fine, we can have a quieter show. That's okay.
Because these shows, they're a lot less predictable than the DC ones, where we know exactly what each week is going to be, in more or less.
And jokes aside about Doomsday Clock, I feel like we have already had more delays in 1 month of doing this show, between a few different books. Because Skyward got pushed like several weeks, 2 issues of Captain America got pushed. I think the last Quantum Age got pushed.
Quantum Age got pushed. what was it last week? We had the 2 issues of Fantastic Four and Iron Man both got pushed.
That's right. We've had more delays between mostly Marvel, but between Marvel and the Indies, we've had more delays in 1 month of this show than we've had in 6 months of a DC show. So
Yeah, I'm a lot more forgiving of the indie ones because it's just one artist doing it, right? Usually.
yeah, true. That's true.
So whatever.
But hey, so yeah, we're going to talk about comics. So we'll get diving into the Marvel stuff as we normally do to begin. We have one issue 1 of note, and that is Guardians of the Galaxy by Donny Cates and Geoff Shaw. So let me get my tablet out for this actually. So
unprepared.
how much did you know about this Guardians series before you read it? Because I had no idea what the lineup was going to be. I was expecting my usual, movie crew.
Absolutely nothing. Although I did know that the lineup wasn't known. They hadn't told people the lineup.
Oh, right, so it wasn't just me that didn't know. That's okay, then.
That's why you don't find out till the end of this first issue, because that was a thing that they weren't telling people.
Okay. So
But I didn't know what the premise of the book was or anything. Basically, it was, it's Donny Cates, I'll try it.
Yeah, the premise of the book is basically, okay, Thanos died, and he's basically revealed, he's got like a kill switch tape, if you will, or a dead man switch tape, where he's like, hey, yeah, I'm actually kind of not dead. I kind of like, my consciousness has been put into someone else. And it's this meeting of all the, the intergalactic cores and, peoples. There's Guardians there, there's Nova Corps, blah, blah.
Yeah, basically everyone who was an enemy to Thanos except people from Earth.
Because us Earthlings can't be trusted.
I'm tempted to give them this one.
Yes, well, so basically reveals that he's been putting somebody else. They actually straight up say, well, it's probably one of the Earth people who's probably got Thanos in them. Other than Gamora, of course. Gamora's the first person to say, oh, that's the obvious one, the daughter. It's her.
Yeah. It's a lot of mind games of going, well, why should we believe this? If we assume that, if we go and, right, well, we'll go and kill anyone we think it could be, how far do we take that? It could be anyone in this room just to mess with us.
Yeah, so they're all pissed that Thanos has done this. The Black Order show up and steal his body, which doesn't have a head, by the way. It's just he's
doesn't.
decapitated.
And also, that's assuming Thanos has done this, and it's not just a bluff to make them go and kill people.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's also a possibility. I'm still kind of expecting that he has done it, just because I expect a reveal of it's been them all along.
They're gonna bring him back somehow, yeah.
Yeah. I imagine he'll get separated from them though. Like, when they actually reassemble his head, they'll take him back, and the person will be back to normal. But oh wait, I was held captive in my body.
Yeah, Thanos ain't staying dead.
Yeah, of course not. So that's the general gist of it. The actual Guardian stuff though, because we cut to Star-Lord and Groot, who are just them two on their own.
Yeah.
In the ship, and first of all, Groot's talking.
Yeah, how long's this been a thing?
I have no idea.
Last time I read a Groot comic, because there was one around, maybe it wasn't just a Groot comic, it was the Rocket Raccoon one that Groot was in.
Yeah, I read that.
Scott Young.
Yeah, Scott Young. I read that. That was a good book.
It was still just I Am Groot then.
It was, and that was around the same time as Bendis's Guardians book. So, I mean, to be fair, that was 3 years ago now. But
it was, but I never even. Typically, I assume I see the headlines telling me, "Oh, Groot can talk now."
Actually, that was in the 2014. That's actually, I mean, it's only 4 years, but it feels like 5 years now because it's 2019.
Yeah,
time flies. So yeah, I had no idea Groot was talking normally now. And obviously, Star-Lord cracks a joke where because Groot says something really shitty to him, and he's like, "Yeah, I am Groot to you too,
he says,
asshole."
F you.
Yeah. So he's in kind of like teenage asshole mode still, seemingly.
Yeah,
that's what I'm getting from it. He's been a bit of a shithead.
Doesn't seem too unlike where he was at the end of the last movie.
No, it does not. So the thing is that basically they go to nowhere, and nowhere's missing, and then it turns out nowhere, which is the head of Celestial, has been used by the Black Order on this meeting, and they end up saving everyone because they all get sucked into a black hole or whatever it is, and Beta Ray Bill, using the Cosmic Ghost Rider chain on his hammer, kind of throws it out as an anchor, hoping someone will, grab it.
And you say saving everyone. I mean, there's only a handful of them, right? That get
come
back out.
Whoever he's got a hold of, because he's basically holding people, and they're just like a daisy chain of people.
Yeah, I think it's just that 5 of them or whatever it was, compared to the 40 that went in, though.
Yeah, but they were all red shirts. It's fine.
Fine.
The prominent characters.
Yeah. Okay.
The prominent characters come out. I think barring one, because they mentioned, oh, that person didn't come with us. So there is definitely a group still in.
Yeah, I mean, like Silver Surfer for a start.
Yeah.
That's fairly prominent.
Yeah, it shows how little I know of most of these Marvel characters in this book. That, like, that final page where it's, that's not the final page, but it's near the end, where Star-Lord's like, no, this is my crew, because the Nova Corps are like, you're not allowed to be here, blah, 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 blah. There's only immunity for, you and your crew. It's like, well, these people are my crew now. And that's like, here's the lineup.
And I'm like, okay, who are all these?
Yeah, I don't know who the silver-haired woman is. I don't know who the bald woman is. I'm assuming that's Cosmic Ghost Rider, just because...
It is indeed. We got some conversation with him earlier in the book, telling us that he's Frank Castle.
Yeah, I know Beta Ray Bill, so that's about all I really know.
I know 2 out of the 4 of the editions here.
Yeah. So that's your lineup, and then the ending reveal is that Hela is behind trying to bring Thanos back. She's given orders to the Black Order.
There we go. Moondragon and Phyla-Vell. I'm going from group when they're coming out of the portal. Group saying, "Oh, is that those are that people?" So one of them's Moondragon and one of them's Phyla-Vell. Don't know which is which. Phyla-Vell's probably the blue one, but I mean, I've just taken a stab there.
Just take a stab.
I could be completely wrong.
Did you like this book? What did you think?
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of setup, so it's not like amazing at the gate, but I liked all the dialogue and banter that was there throughout that early scene. Like Silver Surfer, Beta Ray Bill, and Cosmic Ghost Rider kind of had some good back and forth in that bit. I felt a little bit lost, I'll be honest, not knowing going in like, okay, where are we?
Yeah, I think that's my biggest problem with this is that I have so little attachment to almost any of what's going on right now.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who half these characters are, and it's not so much that I needed the movie lineup of characters to like be into it. I am a little disappointed there's no Rocket though, because Rocket's my favorite one. But
yeah, I don't know what's going on with Rocket, because they kind of go, yeah, we're not talking about that. I'm like, right, okay. I don't know if that's intentionally like a thing that we're not supposed to know, and it's we'll find out later, or if it's something that I should know and they're just not telling us.
Yeah, I mean, they mentioned Drax is dead. That's helpful. Yes, thank you for that.
Gamora's a villain. Fine, okay.
Right, that's where we are. But you're throwing all these cosmic characters at me, and I don't really know a whole lot about Marvel cosmic, really.
No, me either.
I know the Guardians because there was movies. that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I'm vaguely familiar with the Nova Corps being their shitty, Green Lanterns.
Okay, how many people just stop the podcast there after that comment?
Probably a lot.
Yeah. Although I concur with the sentiment. Yeah, I think it's okay. Like I'm not hyped about it yet. It's not a badly written comic by any means, but it's not grabbed me yet. I'm hoping it slows down and it gives me a chance to get to know these characters a little bit.
I'm assuming that's what the next issue will be. Will be mostly, Quill like, all right, who are all you guys? I've just vouched for you, but I should probably, if you're going to be my crew, get to know you a bit.
But I do think it's worth saying that some really good exceptional issue ones will achieve that, and like it doesn't matter that I didn't care about these characters or know about these characters beforehand. It'll just do it. Yeah. And that's to say that most issue ones I like even do accomplish that. It's just that a lot of issue ones I read, I do know who the characters are. I already have a bit of an attachment, so it doesn't have to make that extra hurdle. But
yeah, I agree.
But whereas this is kind of in a place where I've definitely read issue ones where it's achieved that, but I can't really be that grumpy about the fact that this didn't. It's not like a bad comic.
Yeah, it's very well written. I do think that. I think it's well structured. I think it's well paced. I think the reveals work, especially like the one at the end with Hela, because that one, even if you're not familiar, because it says Goddess of Death, and the whole thing is about reuniting Thanos with Death. That was the point of the comic. That reveal made sense in context, even without any other knowledge.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I said, overall, I'm less into it than I wanted to be, just because of those things. But I do think it's a good comic overall, and I want to read more.
Yeah, I'm going to read issue 2 and see if it pulls me in after 2 or 3 issues.
I'm hoping it slows down tells me, it just tells me who the team are a bit, and from there, then I'll probably be okay with the story.
But I'm not excited about it though. I'm kind of at this place where it was fine. I'll read issue 2. I'll see how it goes, but I'm not like.
I agree with that sentiment.
Yeah, super jazzed or anything. What you rating it?
I'm gonna give it a 7.
I'll go 6.5. I can't. I don't think I can quite give it a 7 because I don't necessarily come out of it going, this was good. Like, I don't feel.
Fair enough. I think I got a little bit more out of it, though. I enjoyed the banter between the various characters enough to say, no, that was good, even if I didn't. The reveals didn't land me, which would have pushed it higher.
There was moments between characters that I liked, but it wasn't. There was definitely a lot of this is a lot of characters I don't know, and there's a lot of things going on that I don't quite have a grasp on, and it just is kind of what it is. All right, we'll move on then to Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man issue 2.
Yes.
Which of course
no backup this time
is written by
Tom Taylor.
Thank you.
Is that going to be every time?
For the introduction, sure.
Okay, fine.
I don't think it's that obnoxious, but it's like, no, written by okay, maybe we can talk about it.
All right.
And then art, of course, by Jaunn Cabal, who did the last issue too. So we ended last issue with the two kids, the two who he claims are orange, although to be honest, I thought they were more of a strong,
more of a peach color.
Yeah, I wasn't quite getting orange from them, but that's fair enough. It's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. So we find out Kingpin's kind of behind whatever's going on. It's shocking.
Because of course he is.
Yeah, shocking news. But Spider-Man's trying to deal with these kids. There's some fun jokes here about how they've never heard of Spider-Man, even though they like superheroes, which is then paid off greatly when he calls Human Torch to come round to babysit while he goes and tries to track down the villains.
No, like, of course we know who he is.
Yeah, Human Torch is great.
Yeah.
And he's like, ouch, that hurts. How dare you?
Yeah.
So yeah, he basically realizes they're being surveyed, and he's kind of like pulls a bit of a trick to try and follow him, but he gets caught. They catches Human Torch or whatever going in, and the guy's face rips off because he webs his face to this. It's when Human Torch is flying in, he's like, it was maybe this discreet. Flying flame man is not discreet.
No.
And he webs the guy's face so he doesn't see anything.
Just so he doesn't see which apartment he goes into, I assume.
Yeah, and he rips off the webbing, and his entire face comes with it, and revealing this almost Red Skull-esque kind of.
Yeah, I assume this is supposed to be the same sort of orange that the kids are.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's a little bit darker, but I mean, it's kind of in the ballpark.
I mean, I guess that's maybe it gets a bit darker when they go older. I don't know.
Yeah,
you could go with that. So yeah, the chase is on. Well, it's almost on. He grabs the license plate because the back of the car just kind of rips off.
Yes,
but
the guy starts he kind of brings down a bit of the building as he goes.
Yeah. Although, my favourite thing about this is Spider-Man complaining to himself that bystanders now don't run away and get to safety. They try and film everything, so he ends up having to save more people.
Yeah. One of my favourite moments in this is when he's about to, he's on the building, he's going up the fire escape stairs, and you hear the thing creak. It does a runch sound, and that's the sound effect on the panel. And his monologue just goes, "Oh, that's not good. Buildings shouldn't go runch." I thought, well, that was good.
Yeah, and they keep building supporting cast. We have this new detective, his new liaison, who's the wife of the man he saved last issue with the kid.
Yeah, there's that moment of, oh, you, that family.
Yes. So she's like, "Hey, if there's anything I can ever do for you," he's like, "Well, it just so happens I need this license plate."
Yeah.
So can you do that? So he ends up, going to the guy's hideout.
There's a little bit of banter with her when she gives her her card, and he just puts it down his pants because he's got no pockets.
Yeah, more jokes about just how the awkward little things that Spider-Man has to do and put up with. And he comes and fights this guy. Some nice action, some nice speed lines, that kind of thing. Art's very clean, like it was in the first issue. Generally, it's quite pleasing to look at.
Yeah, I'd say my only criticism with the art, especially at this point with the fight scenes, is it feels like there's a lot of panels with like no backgrounds. It's just white or just one color. Loses my sense of direction a little bit at times.
It does do that a lot. It feels like a stylistic choice, though. There's a lot of that. I'm thinking when the neighbour lady shows up here, because the big twist here is that neighbour lady's actually got some strength, punches out the bad guy, opens her coat, and reveals her uniform, and she's called the Rumor.
Yes. As I get that it's a stylistic choice. I would prefer to understand the geography of the fight scene a little bit better.
That's fair. Yeah, there's some fun stuff with her at the start, actually, when she was complaining about the roommate, Boomerang. So, no, it was an enjoyable issue. It was. I think what I like about it is the action is very sort of clean and has this sense of pacing to it. You know, when he's because you feel like when he's going to sling to the car, you think, oh, big action's coming, and then so the whiff of the thing just breaking off, and then him being like, shit, like that moment plays really well. It's quite funny because the pacing's so good that it feels like it's building up. Oh no, you know.
Yeah, it's well done.
Wet thud.
It's a whole page that builds to that nicely.
Yeah.
Obviously, the woman at the end, she knows that who he is.
Yeah, she calls him Peter, and he's like, "Wait, you use my real name." Shit.
Yeah. He's been rumbled.
I like how I put a lot of shits into Spider-Man's dialogue that aren't actually there. You'd think he was swearing like a trooper the way I quote him.
Yeah, he probably does.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, one of the kids talks, the other one does not.
Yeah.
So you know, no, I enjoyed this so much as the first issue. I think the pacing and the voice for Spider-Man is down, like, you know, pretty much perfect. It's kind of what I want.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
As I think my biggest complaint really is the backgrounds during the fight scenes. Sometimes it happens throughout the issue. Don't be wrong. In conversation, but it's less of a problem in conversation because it doesn't really matter where they're stood for the most part, as long as I know they're in that room. It's in the fight scene, kind of getting the flow of the movement. Having that background in perspective helps a lot more for me there.
Yeah, I think my only problem is the colouring and them telling me something's orange and me going, I don't know if I quite agree with that.
Yeah, if like the guy who pulled his face off looks a lot more orange at the end.
Let me go check the end.
Compared to where he first pulls it off, and he looks a lot darker, like a Red Skull almost.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying.
So I mean, I'd agree that the colouring could be cleared up a little bit.
It's not as bad colouring in the sense of it's achieving a really pleasing image. It's just they're telling me this is one colour, and I'm kind of like, I don't know if I'd call that orange, but you know,
yeah,
it's not like Spider-Man doesn't look blue and red because he does.
Yeah, it's just that one thing.
Yeah, so no, fun issue.
Yeah.
I find that Tom Taylor's books are a breeze to read. Right, it's not so much that there's no dialogue. It's just that it's so well paced in where the dialogue goes that I feel like there's a nice even, like some books, like I mean I like Bendis a lot, but Bendis has this thing where he'll have 3 pages in a row that's stacked with dialogue, and he'll have 3 pages of like no dialogue, and it'll kind of go. So it's a different kind of type of handling the pacing.
It's actually why I can't read Bendis books. It's not even the way that it's stacked and there's none. It's that the actual flow of the sentences of the dialogue.
Well, that's a whole different thing. I mean, I like his flow, you don't, but like.
Oh yeah, but whereas here the flow feels so natural. It actually feels like people talking.
But I'm specifically talking about how it's paced throughout the book, rather than.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole different conversation. Is like how the sentence flows to, line to line. But no, what are you giving it?
I give it an 8.
Right. Yeah, I'll give it a straight 8 too. It's very good. So that'll take us on to Uncanny X-Men Annual, Issue 1, Ed Brisson, and I only got Carlos Gomez from Comixology, but there was definitely at least one more artist.
No.
Really? Just different
no,
colorist?
Carlos Gomez.
Oh, fair enough.
One colorist.
One colorist?
Yep, Guru FX.
I'm impressed then, because that flashback section to it's not it's 10 years ago, but it's clearly the 60s.
Yeah, no. One artist, one colorist, according to the credits page.
In that case, I'm impressed. I'm impressed.
Which I'm inclined to believe.
Yes, I'm impressed that they pulled that off. I assumed they got a different artist and colorist for.
I understand why you would think that, because I did too.
Yeah, so this comic is basically here's how Scott Summers came back because he's supposed to be dead.
Yeah. More importantly, yes, we've changed that awful costume.
Yeah, I'm okay with them going to a more classic Cyclops suit.
That second page, I was like, oh, I forgot this costume's a thing. It's bloody atrocious.
He could have been buried in like just a black suit, or like most people would be. No. He's in his superhero uniform. So this is about young Cable coming back because apparently, I mean, we didn't read any of these events, but he killed older Cable in the event that sent the young X-Men back in time, and
Yes.
he comes to this guy who Cyclops saved. This is where the flashback's there, because Cyclops saved this guy when he was in college, which at present day time is 13 years ago, which is kind of implying that the entire history of Marvel took place over the course of 13 years.
Well, modern Marvel.
Well, yeah.
Because you still got... Well, I mean, that's where it gets murky, because you still have all the stuff that happened in World War II that did still happen in World War.
Outside of that, sure, but I mean, like, all of their continuity from when they started doing, like, Marvel Universe stories, which... Because, I mean, Fantastic Four was first, but X-Men was, like, right after it. Like, it wasn't...
Yeah, it's always been a problem for Marvel, though, hasn't it? The sliding time scale. DC gets around it by stretching it a bit and then just rebooting.
Yeah. Marvel has to... I think eventually they're going to have to tie Magneto to, like, Vietnam or something like that, just to make it work.
It's starting to get implausible.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know that he's had a thing where he's de-aged or something, and it's actually in story. It's not just like a wink-wink. He's been de-aged.
Yeah, but he's old again now, isn't he?
Yeah,
he looks like Gandalf.
he should be over 100 by now. And he's still fighting as often as can be. So he saved this kid who was in college. Well, I say he already had a wife, so I mean he was probably like 20 or something like that. But young not Cyclops, young Cable. That's what I was looking for. Goes to this guy and says, "Hey, you've got 2 years. This is 2 years ago." He says, "You got 2 years to make this new Phoenix box thing, not to trap the Phoenix like this one was invented to, but just to like harness some of its power." So young Cable's enlisted this guy to essentially help bring Cyclops back. So there's glimpses of his funeral. There's all these things, but the idea is that he owes Cyclops his life. I don't know where I get Cyborg from. It's Cable. It's Cable and Cyclops mixed together. You get Cyborg for some reason. I don't know why.
I mean, it's not how those words work, but sure.
I don't know. Too many similar characters. I did read Resurrection of Jean Grey though, so I actually recognised this.
Okay.
Page.
See, I didn't, and one of my biggest complaints about this book is I get to the end. You know, it's kind of this history of all the things over the last few years, and it's here additional reading. And it's got like 5 different. So it's basically the Uncanny X-Men that we just read.
Yes.
Phoenix Resurrection, Secret Avengers, Death of X, and Extermination. I'm like, yeah, I'm not reading all those.
Resurrection was not bad though. So I've got a question actually for any Marvel fans. Did this college event happen in the original book, and they've just kind of like worked this guy into it, or
I'm willing to bet no.
You just think they've added it in? It's just made up. Yeah, maybe. But yeah, so basically, the Cyclops is back. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time saying Cyclops, but I am.
Did you just call him Scott?
Let's call him Scott. Yeah, Scott's back, and he's basically kept hidden for a while, because Cable's like, like something's coming. You're going to be needed, and presumably he's talking about all the X-Men disappearing. And he gets this choice where he can go help the X-Men in the fight against the X-Man, which we saw last issue, or he can go save the guy that saved him and that he originally saved, because he's been attacked by his old college professor that he got in trouble in the first place. Because he's been in prison because he was building cyborgs and robots and controlling them. So he goes and saves this kid and his family again, because it's the right thing to do. And it ends with this mission statement of him being like, you know what am I going to do now? I'm going to find the X-Men and we're going to rebuild this damn thing. He also regrets all the shit he's done, basically, for the last few years, where he's been a bit of a dark character.
Yeah, basically that whole thing where Cyclops was right.
Yes.
This is him going, maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not. Because he's like, yeah, I've basically turned into what humans fear about mutants. And I turned into like basically a new Magneto.
Yeah.
So I need to kind of retcon that out myself. Yeah. So he's like, yeah, I'm going to find the X-Men, and it's this shot of him standing there triumphantly with young Cable, and that's kind of it. The art was a bit iffy for me. Bizarrely, I thought the art in the '60s stuff was the best part.
I was mostly okay with the art, except chests.
Except chests. Yeah, I could see that. He's got a lot of dodgy chests. It was just, I don't know, there's something about the facial expressions, the smoothness of the face, and the way it puckers lips, and
No, I see it.
or lack thereof. I almost feel like they're shading too many muscles. There's too many highlights on muscles, and it just feels a bit too shiny at times.
I can see what you're saying. I didn't hate it, but I mean, it's not my favorite by any means.
It's not the worst. This is kind of what I expect. Like, like we often talk about how DC kind of has a house style. This is kind of what I think of as the basic Marvel house style.
Yeah.
And again, it's not that every book uses it or every book even tries to use it. It's just that
if there isn't one, this is where it defaults to.
yeah, this is the default.
Yeah, I agree with that. I did really like that 60s section though, the art.
Yeah, no, because it didn't make everything shiny. They kept it kind of flat and old school, and that kind of benefited it.
Yeah.
So
you could see them replicating the paper effect with all the dots. With the printing. It worked for me, that section. Probably why they got this artist to do the issue, to be honest.
Probably. So as an issue, it was okay. It was kind of like here's just a bunch of reasons why he's back and setting up things.
I feel like it's just he's just back, just accept it.
I feel like this is more for people who didn't read all these other things than it is for people who did. Like, you still need the detail of Cable bringing him back, sure, but most of it feels like here's a history lesson so you're not lost for the rest of the X-Men run.
Yeah, there's better ways to do that, though, isn't there?
There is.
This is kind of rough in that sense. I guess I needed it because I didn't know most of this stuff.
That's what I kind of needed it.
I feel like I'd rather have just read a few wiki pages.
Yeah. It's the comic book equivalent of here's a few wiki pages. And the art's not even like great enough to make me think, oh yeah, that was worth it just to like see it. You know, like it's not that good. So I don't think it's bad either though. I think it's just kind of this murky middle ground of like, here we had to establish all this stuff for people who, well, so the fact how exactly it came back to a point had to be established for everyone. Everything else is here's.
Yeah, I think it should have. You probably should have just not done this annual. Had the Howie's back told in a different manner through the main book, just the regular issues. Him telling someone, we get some little flashbacks or whatever about it is. Yeah, I think that probably would have played a lot better for me.
Unless this character who helped save him, who he went and saved again at the end, is going to be a recurring character. In which case, I'll give it some more slack.
A little bit, yeah.
Because they've set him up as someone that I'll know who he is. I just hit my pop shield. I apologise.
Yeah, it was really bad.
Yeah. Oh, I went to push my glasses up, which was, so. Yeah. This wasn't just me waving my hands about and getting emotive like I sometimes do.
It usually is, but you're not passionate enough about this book to do that.
No, I'm not passionate enough about this book. But trust me, we'll get to passion later. So, what are you giving Uncanny X-Men Annual Issue 1?
I'm going to give it a 6. And basically, if 5 is okay, it's just average. The only reason it's got a 6 is for the art in that 60s section.
Yeah, I'll agree with a 6. I don't think it's a bad read. I don't regret reading it, but it definitely wasn't an exciting read. It was just kind of like, here's why Cyclops is back.
Yeah.
Just, have at it. That'll take us on to Avengers issue 13. Jason Aaron writing, Andrea Sorrentino on the art. So the art's pretty good.
Well, I mean, goes without saying, doesn't it?
Well, no, it's a podcast. We have to say it.
I mean, I feel like if we could have just not addressed it and everyone would have just assumed that it's great.
Yes. Unfortunately, though, this issue focuses on an Iron Fist.
You say unfortunately.
Yes.
You're not a fan.
I don't know if it quite falls into... Who was it we were complaining about the other week?
Doing what?
Or said it doesn't matter what they do, I'm just never going to like this character. Who was it?
Namor.
That was Namor. That was who it was. I don't have this... It's funny because obviously this isn't even Danny Rand. This isn't even modern
I was going
Iron
to say
Fist.
I agree with that on Danny Rand.
But I think my problem is that my least favorite part of this Avengers run is this million BC thing.
Oh no, I'm so into this bit.
I don't like this. So this entire issue focusing on it, I was immediately like, because this is not the first cover where it's been like the BC Avengers, right? So I didn't really think much of it. I thought, it's fine, there'll be some scenes of that, but it'll have modern Avengers stuff too. And like after a few pages, I'm like, this is going to be the whole thing, isn't it? And it's because it's the first Iron Fist. That's what this is the story of. It's the first because she punches the dragon and gets the Iron Fist, and then she comes back eventually.
I'm just gonna say it now.
Uh-huh.
The Avengers 1,000,000 BC is my favorite part of this run.
Well, that's
Easily.
fine. But it's easily
the most interesting.
It's my least favorite part of this run. I just every time it cuts back to, I'm just kind of okay, just get this over with quickly, please. I just I'm just not that because it has this. You know, I don't like fantasy stuff that much, and by its nature, even though they're not all fantasy characters, being in this time period gives it more of a fantasy feeling. And then,
Sure.
And then Iron Fist, is this mystical character. It's the naming of the kicks and punches as she does moves.
You're not into it?
Nah, I was kind of rolling my eyes at that a little bit.
Okay.
Because part of me was like, okay, either these are just made up, in which case, whatever, it doesn't really mean anything, or they're not made up, and I'm like, are you really thinking about what each move is? If you've researched this, you looked up all these moves, and you're like, this is this and this is that, and
I'm pretty sure they're just made up.
yeah, they're probably just made up, because they sound kind of made up, but I don't know. I hate to be a grump on this, I do, but...
Yeah, I really like this issue. I think it's got a really good flow to it. Art's great. It has that typical Sorrentino thing where every so often it'll break down into all the smaller boxes to focus on a moment.
Yeah, that's fine. The art's great. Like I am not disputing the art at all. I was saying to you before we started actually that we started 10 minutes later because I was falling asleep during an issue and I had to wake myself up. This was the issue I was falling asleep during.
Oh man, no, this flowed so easily for me. Especially the further in it went, because it's quite heavy on the narration early on, I found. But it kind of calmed down a little as it went. Not loads. There's still some there. Don't get me wrong. But I don't know, it felt less excessive as it went on. Maybe I just felt that it found its groove as it went on.
Do you know what I think my problem was? I think a lot of the narration for me was just talking about, like, it wasn't about like hard things like that were going on per se. It was a lot of stuff to do with just like her duty and talking about the dragon and how she feels about the power in her, and it was all these things that ultimately, like, I felt like I could have skipped half the narration boxes in this and not missed like any of the beats of the story. If that makes sense.
I get that.
I guess,
Well,
this is me having a lack of interest on the premise of an Iron Fist, quite frankly.
yeah, because I was going to say the narration, while I would agree it didn't contribute that much to the story, so to speak, like the art's strong enough, you could basically read most of this issue on the art alone.
Yeah.
I felt that the narration actually gave it the character, that gave it the sense of style of what the issue was.
I mean, it's fair. I just, like, Kunlun, this mystical city that appears once every while, I'm not into it.
Yeah, fair enough.
I just, I've not been into this million BC Avengers thing, so
it's doubling down on things you're not into.
It's doubling down. I really liked the last issue, which is funny. I liked the last issue, and it's not even. I mean, obviously, I like the Black Panther movie now, but like other than that, I have no history with Black Panther. But Black Panther going around recruiting all these characters last issue was great. I was really into that. This one was in the opposite direction for me. I'm just not liking this at all. But
fair enough.
Luckily, I'm 100% positive the next issue is back to the main team. So
yeah.
Thumbs up on that.
This team pops up. It's infrequently, right? So I mean, you'll get through an issue here or there. They'll come up in a more serious way later, I'm sure.
Yeah, because there was one other issue, right? There was was it Ghost Rider had an issue?
Odin, right? We did the Odin Phoenix thing, right?
I could have sworn Ghost Rider had one.
I mean, I remember Ghost Rider on the Mammoth going around.
Yeah.
Maybe that was all in the same issue. So I remember stuff with Odin and the Phoenix Force stuff.
But yeah, I wasn't super hot in that issue either. Like that was when I was binging the first 10 or whatever to catch up.
Yeah, I think that was quite early on. That was maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 in that range.
Yeah, so that was definitely my least favorite of that first bunch as well. So I don't know. And again, this is a taste thing. This is less to do with the craft of a
objective
comic.
Quality probably hasn't changed. If anything, it's maybe slightly higher overall given the art. But
yeah,
you just struggle to get into it. I mean, it happens.
And arguably, it's more focused as well. I could almost agree that it's a more focused comic, and therefore I'd praise that normally. But it's focused on something I don't like. So
yeah, when that happens, you're just kind of screwed for an issue, aren't you?
Yes. If this was like an issue 1 and the premise of the book was going to be following this character around, I would drop it immediately.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'd be into it. But I get but
yeah. But it's
I
it's,
understand
it's
why
it's a flashback issue, and next issue we're back to normal, so it's fine. We
Yeah.
can move on with our lives. So now what are you giving Avengers 13?
I'm going with an 8.5. I really like this.
I don't know what to rate this. This is weird.
You're conflicted because of the objective quality versus
Yeah,
just your feeling.
just how I felt. How I felt was a 5. It was just in the middle. Like it was,
Yeah.
But obviously, it's not a 5 out of 10 comic because it's better written than that, and the art's really good. So I'll give it a 6 for the art dragging up. But I felt nothing but sleepiness, basically. So that's not a fault of the writer or the artist. That's just a fault of I just don't like this type of thing. So moving on then to Immortal Hulk issue 12. Which is obviously Al Ewing writing and Joe Bennett on the art. We're in Hell still, and we have more. This is very similar to the last issue. It's a very similar structure in that it's kind of like cutting between these philosophical kind of debate pages where the narration is just kind of like teaching us things about theories.
The first line of this comic is, "What is the devil?"
Yes.
And that kind of tells you everything you need to know about going into this issue, right?
And I think there's no coincidence that that's one thing this has compared to the last issue, which means we actually spend a lot less time in the main present day Hulk stuff because we also get flashbacks to his father, also technically Banner as well as a kid, but his father back when Banner was a kid, but also when he found out that his wife was pregnant, and kind of some of his inner workings. I don't think it's a coincidence that we're finding out. We get that question, "What is the devil?" The same issue, we're learning more about his father. Like I feel like there's an obvious
parallel. Yeah.
Yes, like there's obvious things there.
I will say I thought the dad was a little cliche overwritten.
That's fair. The part I liked about the dad stuff though was his like own admission to himself that he didn't want a kid because then he'd have to share the love of his wife with something else.
Yeah, I thought that stuff got better. I'm thinking, especially that very first scene with him, where you got the kid playing with this thing and he's coming drunk and just shouting at the kid. I'm like,
Do you know what I thought was weird about that is he picks up one of the things that Bruce is playing with and it's like a gamma thing, right? It's a science
City Gamma.
Yeah, it's a science toy, right, for kids that are twice his age. And he says, "What's this?" He's like, "Oh, it's gamma," and he's like, "Don't be ridiculous." See when he pointed out later that, because I didn't really know this off the top of my head, when he pointed out later that he was actually a scientist who works in a similar kind of field, I'm like, why would you react this? This was written as if like a jock football dad was like, "My son's into science." Like,
it was weird, wasn't it?
So I'll give you that scene was a little bit off because of that, but
yeah. Probably the only thing in this issue I didn't like though, that scene, and then the young Bruce doing the smash on the city. Ugh.
Yeah, it was a bit on the nose. Yeah.
Ugh.
It was a bit on the nose. So basically, it's more about teasing this entity because Banner's father kind of admits that this thing's using him as a vessel right now, but ultimately it wants to switch to him. And it's kind of maybe succeeding, because Hulk's kind of like ready to go in towards the end, and the reporter's like, "Wait, how can you do this? This thing's at the end of the world." And Hulk's like, "No, it can't be that." And she's like, "Well, why not? Because that's what I am."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Okay, that was a badass line."
Yeah, it was, and that demented grin on Skinny Hulk.
Yeah, even just like her questioning him and asking like, "Oh, how long have you kind of been in charge?" Because, you're smarter than like you have been in the past. You're in control, except during the daytime, except right now because it's daytime.
Yeah, the way she talks about it makes it sound like it's a third personality rather than just the traditional mindless Hulk and Banner. This is a third someone else, right?
Yeah, this is like, I don't know, like when he gets angry, he still becomes kind of the mindless Hulk, and because that's what she kind of talks him down from at the start. But it kind of then becomes this more intelligent Hulk.
Rational.
Yeah, rational is maybe a better word for it. And it's interesting. And then you tie into this idea that, like, is this the other personality that's wanting to take over from Hell? Has it already accomplished it in some way? Or, or is it just, no, there is more to them than just two?
Yeah, which is an interesting concept in itself.
Yeah.
And I think that would be very interesting given that the theme of the philosophical narration is duality, right? In this issue, anyway.
Yeah.
It's all, if there's a devil, there's a god. That's kind of the end point. But a lot of it is about balance and opposites. So if this is a third entity, does that mean is there a fourth in there as well?
Yeah, and would the fourth one be a second human personality?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm going too far on this one.
Maybe, yeah.
It came to my mind.
It's interesting. Actually, what's the dialogue that Dad says towards the end? I think there's some really specific dialogue that's relevant here. Where because he actually, I think this is one of the first times that the Dad himself has talked about this thing as an entity. Like, this is a specific thing that's not him. Like, he's not the entity himself.
Yeah.
He's like, where this thing from my dream, because he talks about how he had a vision of something back when he was working as a scientist, right before he found out that his wife was pregnant. Waiting here for me, here below everything. Creation's secret reflection, vaster than we can see or know. It can only influence our world. You see, it can't work directly. It has to have a host personality, a soul it can speak and act through. It had me for that. Implying that maybe it's even been connected to him for a long time. It's not just been recently. This has been, his father's had, because his father's always been kind of a villainous character, right?
Yeah.
But now it has you, my immortal son. Because as we've established, Banner can't die. The Hulk, spits out the bullet, as it were.
Yeah.
And you opened the door with the bomb. You opened the door with everything. You set it free. Blah 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 blah. Which we've been playing with the green door and all that kind of thing. So I guess what I like about this thematically is that the idea that when Hulk had his accident, not only did it unleash Hulk, it opened the door to other things as well. Like creating this power, this extreme, shakes the fundamentals of physics, or in this case, even beyond physics. This is heaven, hell, and evil entities.
Yeah, it's getting existential.
Other dimensions, yeah. So no, it was a really quick read, and it almost feels like this arc's going to read better probably when it's all together in like 3 or 4 issues.
Yeah, it's funny that it is such a quick read, because when you look at it, it feels like it should take a while with the style, the way it's broken down.
Yeah,
but it's really not.
I think it's because it doesn't actually move because, like I said, there's only like 2 or 3 scenes of Hulk and the Reporter, like actually in the main present day story. There's a lot of other stuff that kind of splits it up. So, which isn't really a complaint. It's just an observation of how it makes the issue feel like it's moving. But no, this book's been good.
It has.
Admittedly, I don't think I'm loving this Hell stuff as much as I did the previous arc.
I would agree with that. I think I'm enjoying the concepts and the philosophical ideas that it's poking at. I'm enjoying it a lot to think about.
Yeah,
but I think to read it was more enjoyable before.
Yeah, I think what I liked about the stuff before was, him being captured in the jars, and then him escaping and going to the desert and fighting the Abomination, like all that. Or not Abomination, sorry, Absorbing Man. All that stuff is like just like straight up horror comic, right? Whereas this is becoming more like an Exorcist style like conversation about where things are coming from. Whereas before it was a monster horror comic. It was the beasts and the absurdity of that. It was more science based, I guess. But that's the other thing. In the real world, even Creel and Puck see this like big monstrous cloud thingamajig.
Yeah,
the entity, we'll call it.
Yeah, it looks impressive.
It does. So, what are you giving Mortal Hulk issue 12?
Straight 8.
Straight. I will agree with 8. It's a solid issue. Okay. So we'll move on to Crypt of Shadows issue 1. I think this is a one shot, and this is Al Ewing again. Various artists, because it's kind of split up into multiple stories.
Yeah.
So, they're all connected though. It's actually one person sort of talking to his therapist about his fear of dogs.
It is, yeah. When I glanced at the credits page and saw 3 stories with 3 artists, I assumed, it's just an anthology, and it's not really.
No. So the artists on here are Gary Brown, Stephen Green, and Jibril Morissette Fam. I apologize for my pronunciation. So one story is him telling the stories, and that's kind of the wraparound. And then there's two stories kind of within that. One is of him robbing a grave because this person was buried with all their valuables because they didn't want to leave it to anyone, and getting attacked by a dog, and then other little details around that. And then the other one is about how, and this is kind of funny that Immortal Hulk just was talking about a father who didn't want a kid, because this is him and his wife, and they can't get pregnant.
Yeah. I feel like Al Ewing's trying to tell us something.
That kids are awful. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
And the wife gets a dog, but he's upset because the dog's stealing love away from him. And I couldn't help but think of Hulk, which I'd read like 2 issues before this. I'm like, that's a very similar kind of theme here.
Yeah.
What we got going on here? So he actually poisons the dog meat, but the dog meat that he's getting is actually proper like steak and stuff like that. So the wife actually tests the food, and she goes crazy.
Yeah, and stabs him.
And stabs him. And then the kind of twist is that he was trying to rob the grave afterwards. That was like a story, but it was set after that. And then it turns out the psychiatrist is actually his wife. And it's essentially a Tales from the Crypt episode. Like that's the best way I could kind of describe it. Is that he's already kind of screwed, and he's kind of living on his own eternal hell, and he's like reliving these stories, and the wife like turns out to be that's kind of it, because she kind of like reveals that it's her, and then fades away, and he's left to like be attacked by dogs because he's got a fear of dogs. That's how the issue starts.
Yeah, I thought it was all right.
Yeah,
I thought it was very predictable, like immediately.
Yes, no, I agree. It was kind of like right away you get the sense of where this is going.
Yeah, like in the first story, I don't think it tells us his name, or his first name. Is Jaunn. It tells us his surname. She calls him Mr. Radley, and then it's like, oh, that first it's about this guy Jaunn, someone or other, and and he's going through all these details of what he did, and it gets to the end, and it's like, and he's locked in the crypt, and the psychiatrist's like, oh, so someone found him. He's like, no one ever found him. She's like, well, then how do you know the story? I'm like, well, this is pretty clearly him then.
Yeah.
It was just really heavy-handed, I guess.
Yeah, it felt like it was going through the motions. Like,
yeah,
there was no spark, and I think it's based on an old story, actually, because it's like an anniversary. The reason why this exists is because it's an anniversary. So I'm wondering, like, if this is just like an update of an old story, an old comic.
Maybe. I didn't realize it was based on something.
I think it was, because I think it was the cover. Oh, not the cover. I mean, it says 80 years of Marvel horrors. It's the 80th anniversary of their horror comics. But I'm sure I read in somewhere. Was it the description page?
Maybe. I think they're doing a series of I don't think it's just horror though. I think they're doing a series of these one shots based on all different old things they've done, right?
Oh, that's fair. Yeah. It was okay. Like I have nothing particularly great to say about it, but I also have nothing particularly bad to say about it.
Yeah, I like the art well enough.
Yeah, that's not bad. Some of the evil dogs, the sort of the blood red coloring.
Yeah, I thought that stuff looked pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad. I think I never really. This is actually one of the problems I have with a lot of Tales from the Crypt episodes. Is I never really got a good, solid connection with the main character. I never really cared about him that much.
Oh yeah.
I don't in a good way or a bad way.
Yeah, I get it. It's hard in 20 pages to do that and tell a story, but it can be done.
Yes, I think honestly the story of like just what the second story was as the whole comic would have probably worked better. Where he is jealous of the dog, he devises this plan to kill his wife, and just have the end immediately the wife ate the food first and goes crazy and kills him.
I get that. I can actually see either or. To be honest, the first story kind of take your time with that horror of him. This man's kind of descent into madness. How how he went through all these things. It got worse and worse, and how he kind of killed that security guard and kind of brushed it off. I think there's ways you could go deeper into that and get a whole issue out of that stuff as well.
Yeah, but squeezing them both into this sort of one issue, it just kind of
didn't help.
Goes through the motions. What are you giving it?
I'll give it a 6 just because I did quite like the art.
Yeah, 5.5.
Fair enough.
Which will take Connor on to talking about Star Wars issue 60, because TV Star Wars still. Kieron Gillen writing. Is it Angel or Angel? I feel like
I have no idea.
I feel like it may be Angel just because it's a foreign name. And then it's Angel Unzueta.
Yeah. So this is part 5 of presumably 6 of this arc now.
Mm-hmm.
We left last issue with Scar Squadron showing up, and the hosts of this world that they're staying on, this moon, going, well, why don't you sort this out in our custom of a duel to the death, rather than just an all-out battle. So that's how we start this issue. We start with the setup of Luke and this stormtrooper with a lightsaber about to duel. The door of the main guy whose family owns this moon, where they've been staying, who has been kind of growing close to Luke over the arc. Before she kisses him, gives him like some clues as to what to do, and hands him and kind of pockets a little device under his jacket. But then the duel starts, and the art for this duel is excellent. It's so dynamic. You really get this sense of Luke's borderline incompetence still at this stage, where it's just a bare minimum to hold himself against this. And this guy's it's just a stormtrooper, but he's been practicing with a lightsaber longer, even though he doesn't have the connection to the Force to help him out. So they're kind of on par, seemingly. But at this point, Luke figures out the clues that the girl was leaving him, and it was a little smoke grenade that she left him. So he throws that and gets away. So he gets away into the graveyard, which is what the clue was, and he meets up with the main guy, her father, who basically reveals that he was kind of testing them when they were staying here. It was like seeing whether or not they as the rebellion were worth fighting alongside. Are they good people? Do they not just do they stand a chance, but are they doing this for the right reasons? And ultimately, Luke's, I mentioned last time how he made the transmitter. He was desperate to get back in the fight. Leia had her own plans going on. Han didn't kill a guy when he could have done in a duel. He put out his gun on stun just to not kill a guy, because it was over something really trivial, like a spilled drink in a bar. And the guy respects all of this. And he's like, no, you were trying to get back in the fight. You really believe in this cause. We're people are warriors. That's how we got this moon. We got it as a reward for doing something bad for the Empire. So do you know what? We're gonna help you out. So he goes up alone against Scar Squadron, makes a stand, and tells Luke to run, go to the others, go to the village. All of the people will be ready to go, because this is something they've prepared for, is that at some point something will go wrong and they'll have to evacuate. So you have all of this little warrior tribe coming and leaving with them now. And the main guy does die. He goes out against Scar Squadron, just trying to buy Luke some time. It's really, really well done, because obviously his daughter gets away with them, and she's quite upset naturally. But she wants to appreciate her grief, I guess. She wants to stay in it. She doesn't want to move on just yet, even though they're obviously in danger and running away. Sana, who is, you might have seen the headlines a couple of years back. It was the person who was introduced as Han's wife, if you recall that.
Yeah.
She's not really. They were like fake married for a job, something or other. But she was the one who dropped them off on this planet. But she got captured and got caught by a torture probe droid. The one that goes for Leia in the cell in the first movie. So she's like, that's why she gave up the location to get back here. So she gets her revenge on that, blows it up. It's pretty satisfying. And Scar Squadron are left on the planet with just a protocol droid, basically. And the droid's like, well, sorry, we don't have any way of contacting the outside world now. The next scheduled contact will be 4 months. House is well stocked. Help yourself. But obviously, they're not too happy about this. And then some of the local wildlife shows up. They're these kind of bear, dog-like creatures. And the droid's like, yeah, they learn to stay away from the locals, but you're not locals, so good luck. The droid just goes, yeah, enjoy your stay. As these bears are charging at this, there's only like 5 stormtroopers, and that's the end of the issue. I hope they survived somehow, or at least one of them, because I do enjoy Scar Squadron, as I said when they showed up last issue. Yeah, it's pretty solid. Especially all the stuff they do at the start. The art is great. It's nice to see this new group of characters kind of coming out into the larger story rather than being just left behind on this world. I'll give it a solid 8.
That takes us on to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, issue 1, based of course on the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This is written by Jordie Bellaire with art by Dan Mora. So this is the new Boom Buffy comic that they revealed a few months ago, and it's a complete reboot. It's kind of an interesting thing because they're taking the Buffy mythos, and I kind of liken it to Ultimate Spider-Man in the sense that we're doing the Ultimate Universe version of Buffy, where we're starting from scratch again, and it's it's high school Buffy, but things have changed a little bit. Not every character is exactly where they were at the start of the show. Some characters are here a bit sooner, that kind of thing. The origin is different. I do love that the title of this issue is Welcome Back to the Hellmouth, because the original episode was called Welcome to the Hellmouth.
Yes, I get it.
Why are you signing at that? That's
just because it's like, okay, it's fine. I don't think it's that good.
It's a fine thing to point out. People like
Sure.
these observations. So Buffy even has a job that's very reminiscent of Double Meat Palace from season 6. Was it the Tunaverse? Sure, Tunaverse.
Yeah.
Why not? So I guess first thing is that Willow is definitely the character who stands out as being a bit different from this time period.
Yes.
And it's worth mentioning it's set in 2019. It's set present day, but it's Buffy's high school age.
Yeah, I think the biggest, clearest indication is Willow's already out.
Yeah, she already knows she's gay. She has a couple of references to that. She also seems to dress a bit more like season 5-ish kind of Willow.
Yeah, she's got the fishnets on.
Yeah, a bit more confident, which I guess kind of makes sense. One of the arguments I heard for this, beyond just making it different for the sake of, because arguably the writer just likes later seasons Willow and wanted to use later seasons Willow. I think the argument for this is that a teenager in 2019 is perhaps more likely to be a bit more confident about these aspects of her life than a teenager in 1997.
Stands to reason.
I mean, I don't know. If there's truth to that, then there's truth to that. That's fine. My only disappointment with that, though, would be that I actually really like early seasons Willow, and it's almost a shame that we don't get any of her.
Yeah, sure. I disagree with that. I'm not too disappointed though, personally. I don't disagree that it would be disappointing for some people.
Yeah, I'm not that disappointed. Like, I like later seasons of Willow. It's just that's the male disappointment to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she meets Willow and Xander in a different way. She's at work. They happen to be there. Buffy's not made any friends yet, and they get attacked by a vampire outside. And Buffy, jumps into action, all superhero-esque. Obviously, Xander cracks some jokes. I think that's one of the things that immediately Xander's voice felt kind of right to me. Like, it felt like I can hear Nicholas Brennan
Probably the most accurate.
saying these lines. Yeah.
Not that all the others are bad, but his stood out as that is exactly right.
Yeah. I think generally, though, the Whedon speak is there. Like, it doesn't feel like... There's the scene where they watch Buffy go into the library, and Xander's like, oh, hey, follow her before we lose her, and I was like, what, into the library where there's a sign? Like, I think we'll find her.
Yeah.
It's the library. And, they jump in, and Giles is all, who are these dweebs? And, so on. So that's kind of the setup.
Giles has never said, who are these dweebs?
No, he's not. That's the sentiment you get. So, and, Buffy's having nightmares, and there's the vampires happening. So, ultimately, this issue is about her meeting Xander and Willow for the first time. It sets up the villain a little bit as well, of course, but it's basically Willow and Xander reach out to her because she's kind of lonely. In fact, probably one of my favourite panels of the book is the scene where they're in class, right? It's after Buffy shows Giles the amulet that one of the vampires was wearing. So he's in research mode. And she's in class, and they give, Willow hands her a note saying, hang out with me and Xander tonight. That panel at the bottom of that page, I think, is probably one of the most impressive panels in terms of capturing the actor. likeness.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It looks like Buffy. Like, it just looks like Sarah Michelle Gellar from the early days of the show.
It does, yeah.
Because I think the art's
And not in the awkward traced way.
yeah, not in that way. It really captures it. And I think the art is actually generally pretty good anyway. Like, I actually think it's much better than most of the Dark Horse stuff I've read.
I've only read a little bit of the Dark Horse stuff, so I can't speak generally. Yeah. But yeah, I quite like the art.
Yeah, that's quite good. So yeah, the big thing. So the other big things is that there's a magic shop in town. I don't think it's necessarily the magic box though. And Anya's running it, who obviously traditionally comes in season 3, but not as a main character till season 4.
Yeah, I will say as a complaint in the first scene with her and the vampire, I did not realize that this was supposed to be Anya.
She's the only one who's not immediately recognizable.
Yeah, it says her name later in the back in the last scene with her, and I went, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, and I think partly because she's kind of similar here to Buffy is one of the things. Also, where she is not somewhere where we expect to find her yet, because it's it's a new location for her. But yeah, there's actually, and then obviously the villain that shows up at the end at the magic shop is Drusilla.
Yes,
that's the last page reveal, is that she's there to get stuff. So we're getting Drusilla. There's no Master. We're not met Spike yet.
No, she's taking the place of the Master from what I read in View.
Seemingly, yeah. Anya was watching Firefly, though. I might point that out.
Yes, I saw.
That's amazing. Also, there's a neat little twist here that actually made me go back and reread several pages because I wanted to read it in the context of the twist.
Go on.
So there's a twist here that the blue narration boxes early on, which are implied to be Buffy, are actually Xander's.
Okay.
Because you get to the last scene with them and they're watching a movie together, and this is where Willow clearly implies that she's gay to Buffy, and they're kind of learning about each other.
Oh yeah. It shows him on his laptop.
It's on his laptop, which is called the Zeppo, which is a reference to an episode as well. And it's the same blue thing, and it's the same text as the last panel we saw. And I went, wait, what's this trying to tell me? And I went back and read them all, and I'm like, yeah, this actually kind of works. Like, if you read it thinking it's him instead, the twist is that he feels this way. And you assume it's Buffy because she feels this way because she just moved here. She feels alone because she's a Slayer.
Yeah, I think the point is supposed to be that all the teenagers think the same, really.
Yeah.
That they're all concerned about the same things.
Pretty much. But it works in context for Buffy at the time, and then you go back and look at it again, and it completely works. And I think it's a nice little surprise, though, because he seems, in his own goofy way, he seems really confident.
Yeah.
Up until this point. And that's kind of Xander on the show. He's not scared to open his mouth, but that doesn't mean that he's not terrified deep inside and has the same concerns and worries and anxieties and whatnot. So no. And in terms of just like nailing, like, here's some sort of typical Buffy scenes. Here's her with Willow and Xander. Here's her in the library with Giles. Here's a vampire. Here's a staking. All these things all kind of feel like they're hitting the right kind of tone.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It feels like we're, I'm excited about this comic in a way that I never really was about the Dark Horse one. The only comic in the Buffyverse that ever kind of got me feeling like this was Angel After the Fall, which was the first Angel comic that came post the show.
Right.
From IDW, and I really liked that one. Because that felt more in tone with what Angel was. And this kind of, to me, even though it is kind of this weird reboot where it's like we're re kind of doing it from the start, it feels more like Buffy.
Sure, I don't disagree with that. I think I'm a little less excited by it. I still think it's a good issue. I think it actually relies on you already being a fan a little bit too much. I know there's interviews and stuff. They speak about how the point of this is that they want it to be, for someone who's never seen Buffy, they want this to be their Buffy, right, rather than the show. And I think there's a few too many things that don't really, like that last page reveal kind of means nothing to you if you don't know who that is.
Here's my thing with that, though, right, is that, one, we can't read this without knowing all this stuff.
Sure.
It's impossible, so we can't do it with that perspective. Secondly, I feel like there's so many comic book last pages with like a reveal of a character like this that we don't know, and we're not meant to know.
I agree, but it's always, for me, it's a bigger problem in a first issue because we often talk about how the first issue has to have something beyond the premise at the end, that extra thing that's why you stick around for this book. I don't think this has that.
I think for new readers, this is just like, she's a cooler vampire. Like, because the vampires up until this point are kind of grunts, right? That one that goes to the shop and is kind of mad, because that's actually a really cool scene. You see his face get melted off.
Yeah.
Because he drinks the potion that different
Anya.
Buffy character that comes later, that Anya gives him, and his face literally melts off his skeleton, and it's kind of glorious.
Yeah.
But I think the idea is that, okay, clearly this vampire is different. She's slick, she's well dressed. She, there's a difference in the art to her that kind of tells you something about her, at least. Does it have the huge hook that some comics do, where it's like, here's the twist in the premise? It doesn't. I don't know what it could do though, in the sense that, like, for the people who like Buffy, what does it do to twist it without like betraying?
No, that's fair. I just to compare it to Guardians of the Galaxy issue 1, which we had earlier this show.
Yes.
The last page of that reveal, I specifically said worked for anyone who wasn't already familiar with that character because of the context that it gave you in the issue, right? And the dialogue on that page specifically gave it. And I actually said that at the time, not even thinking about this book. I wasn't thinking, I'm going to bring this up later.
What was funny to me about that, though, is that for me, that reveal at the end was kind of like, oh, it's Hela.
Sure.
That was my reaction to it, it's Hela.
No, fine. But that's you, sure. But the context of, okay, it said goddess of death, and that issue had been talking about death in this fashion throughout the issue, so that it naturally was like, oh, that's a twist on those expectations. That's what that was doing. This here doesn't do that for me. It's just, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, to me, I'm going, oh, cool. They're replacing the master with her. They're bringing her forward, right? It doesn't have that. Oh, this is really interesting to do this.
No, I mean, for a first-time reader, sure. I think for people who like Buffy, it's your first glimpse of Drusilla, which is a big deal.
Sure.
Right, you've got two different camps here. I'm just skimming through other things I really like about it. Is she's at one point she's sneaking a comic book instead of doing homework, and not that Buffy ever specifically liked comic books in the show. What I like about this though is two things. One, the idea that it's playing with the superhero tropes, because one of the things, especially if you watch early Buffy, there's a lot of like little hints and nods to her actually being a superhero, and this is her secret identity, and it kind of plays with comparing it to that. So her reading a comic book kind of like ties that thematically into it. The other thing I like about it is there was a joke in Buffy, I think it was season 5, where they're watching a kung fu movie and she starts critiquing the fighting and starts
I remember that, yeah.
And start pointing out, like, you wouldn't do that, you go after that guy first and you wouldn't punch like that, and she does that with the comic book. So it was kind of like two birds with one stone. Here's like some themes, and here's like a little joke that kind of ties into her character from the show. So I like that. I think as a Buffy fan, this kind of nails what I want from a Buffy comic.
Yeah, fair enough.
At least so far. And it's left me pretty hyped for more. So, not surprisingly. I mean, it is kind of surprising. I mean, I know you can sit there and sort of laugh and say, oh, you love the Buffy comic that came out this week. What a surprise. But the Dark Horse stuff never was like that high on my rating scale. Like, I enjoyed it. Like, I always had fun reading whatever I read of it. But it was never like, oh, this is the most exciting comic this week. This is, it kind of peaked at an 8, when it was at its heights. But there was there was long stretches though when it was like a solid 6 or a 7.
Yeah, okay, I get that. I think for me with this I think it's very good. Like, I do think it's good. I think it's well written. I don't think it has anything above and beyond. That's like, I'm going, okay, yeah, sure, it's Buffy. That's cool. It's not got anything that gives it a unique identity to this comic, to me, which is what I wanted. Not really. I know it's shuffled some things around that make it different to the show in terms of, its story and where it is. But it doesn't have anything that sets it apart, really, for me. Not on a fundamental level.
I don't know if it needs to be set apart for me.
Oh, fair enough.
I don't know. I never thought about it.
I feel like it comes down to, we talk about movie reboots, right? It's like, well, if you're going to reboot it, you've got to do something different. You've got to have a point, a reason to remake it, rather than just because you can. Because and I feel here, I'm not feeling the reason to remake this story yet. It's like it's just there because we can.
Now, admittedly, this might be a hard question for you to even try and answer because I don't think you've read it. But what would you then say the point of Ultimate Spider-Man is? Since I compared this to that.
I haven't read it, but from what I'm familiar with, the point of that was just because it was 50 odd years or whatever, however long it was at that point of Spider-Man history.
But it would have been 40, I think, because it was 2000-ish.
All right, 40 odd years of Spider-Man history, and let's try and streamline it.
Sure.
For new readers because especially with that where all these things were out of print, you can't, and most people couldn't just go and read all of that history.
Well, how does that not work for this then? Because first of all, we've changed Willow a little bit. We've brought in Annie earlier, so we are streamlining it to a point where it's like, okay, we know we're going to introduce these characters and stuff. We're doing some of it earlier, right? But you're thinking of just in terms of the show. Think of it in terms of there's been 4 seasons of comic books which make up, and how many is it? It's like there's over 100 issues of Dark Horse comics for Buffy at least, right? There's over 100.
I would ignore all the comics personally because this isn't taking any of that into consideration, this book. So I'm saying in terms of...
Well, no, it's not, but that's why it's a reboot. That's why it's not... That's not why it's not continuing anything.
Yes, but my point is, if I was to take the comics into consideration and consider this as a reboot to the comics, this would be the new season 8. And because it's not that, this is a reboot to the show. Ignore all the comics. This is just a reboot to that.
Yeah, well, but why is that more like? Why would you then not complain that it's just? What was the point of just doing season 8 again and going from there? Like what? Because then you're just doing that again.
No, you are, and that's a fair question. But and that's why I'm saying no. That's why I'm saying I wanted this to have something to set it apart. And for me, it doesn't have that. I feel like it's just doing it because it's got to, right? It doesn't know what else to do. It's like, we'll just redo it. That's how I feel coming out of this. You mentioned Ultimate Spider-Man. I said it was a lot for me. A lot of that is about the accessibility. People, I mean, it's a bit easier now with the kind of getting through a lot of stuff. But at the time, most people couldn't just go and read every issue of Spider-Man. Whereas now, pretty much anyone can go and watch every episode of Buffy if they want to. It's it's very accessible.
They can. I never went in saying, this has to have something to set it apart for me. I never felt that. I just wanted good Buffy stories, and this is kind of what this is doing. And it's probably, out of what I've read of Buffy comics, it's probably the best Buffy issue I've read.
Fair enough.
Not Angel issue. I'm not comparing that. Angel After the Fall I think is really good, but I don't know. I never went into this mindset where it has to prove its worthwhile existence. I'm thinking of it as a remake, like in movies. If I'm remaking a movie that I like already, why? Beyond just because it's updating it, why are we remaking it? What's the purpose of this remake? What's setting this apart? And see, this is where it gets fuzzy though, because we're in a different medium, and with a different medium, no one questions why you adapt something. No one ever questions that.
No, but that's because this isn't an adaptation, is it?
No, but it kind of is. If it's redoing those years of the show, it's kind of doing its own version for comic books, right?
I don't know if it is though. I think this is more of a straight remake rather than adaptation. Adaptations are a lot closer than this.
Yeah, but if you only call it a remake, it's kind of weird as well, because it's a remake where it gets to use the likeness of the actors, it gets to use all these things, it gets to look like the original show.
Yeah, it's murky.
So I don't know. I feel like you're setting up these rules for it that it has to pass for you for some reason, and I'm not quite getting it.
Fair enough.
For me, it was just a really enjoyable issue. It felt like Buffy. It felt like it nailed most of the characters' voices right. Xander especially. Willow feels a bit different because she has this older version of Willow, but it doesn't. I'm getting kind of in tune with that. I like the art a lot. I'm interested to see what they do with Drusilla. I'm into it. But as what it is. So what are you rating it then?
I'll give it a 7. It's still good. I just it's not setting my world on fire.
9 out of 10.
Of course it is.
That was great. I love this issue. That was the highlight of my week. I like this more than my DC books this week.
Sorry, you cut out there a second for me. What did you say?
I said I like this more than my DC books this week.
Fair enough.
That was good.
To be honest, I probably liked it more than most of my DC books this week. I didn't have a great week for DC.
Ah, you were a grumpy bastard on DC show.
Yeah.
Oh dear. All right. Moving on then. One last book, which was just me. Which is Aliens Resistance issue 1 from Dark Horse. This is kind of an interesting book. It's Brian Wood and Robert Carey doing the art. This is both a sequel to Aliens Defiance, which Brian Wood did at Dark Horse. That was a 12-issue series a couple of years ago. And it's also a sequel to Alien Isolation, the video game.
And that right there is the main reason I haven't read this. Because it's a sequel to the game, which I haven't played, which I could have maybe gotten past. But it's also a sequel to that last Alien story. Then I was like, do you know what? That's too much.
Yeah, honestly, having read it now, I'd say you could happily read this without playing the game. I don't think anything that's super relevant. I think the characters that it brings from the other comic, though, feel a little bit harder to swallow. Because in Aliens Defiance, it was this colonial marine who sides with a droid, an android, an AI, who has decided to try and stop Weyland-Yutani from getting their hands on an alien. So they're trying to wipe out every known existence of the xenomorph, anything that's been reported. And it all goes badly, of course. They end up on Earth. They don't really succeed in much. But at the start of this book, this character, Zula, or at the end of the last book, rather, she had retrieved the memory chip of this droid who'd crashed with the ship into the water. So she's got this AI on her computer who's talking to them constantly. And I feel like that's one of those details where you'd be like, oh, who's this character talking to them? What's going on? What's this relationship they have? Where because Zula really trusts him now. Over the course of that book, she grew to really trust him.
So it does feel like, because obviously the typical Dark Horse model is like series of miniseries,
yes.
Right? And you kind of have to be in the know for a lot of them because they're kind of bad at telling you what's what for a lot of it. I'll be honest. It does. Would you say this kind of falls into that category where it's absolutely kind of just the next part of that story in many ways?
Kind of. It's it's interesting because it does this really neat thing. It's called Aliens Resistance because Zula and Amanda Ripley, who's Ellen Ripley's daughter, who was in the game, and it was established actually, I think, at the start of Defiance that they know each other. Like Zula mentioned she knows her, so it was kind of tied to the game's universe, even the first book, but it wasn't like a huge deal. It didn't really matter. It was like it's just an alien universe story, whatever. Whereas this is like, no, she comes and finds and says, no, like, are we going to try and stop this? Like, because Weyland-Yutani are still at it. They apparently have a specimen. They've got some site somewhere. So the plot of this issue is them trying to find out where this site is and then trying to get there. Like, the end of the book is them almost arriving at this site. They're going to try and sabotage it. And so they're actively seeking out, which I actually really like as a premise, because one of the things I liked about Defiance was that it was a droid and a person saying, no, this thing that Weyland-Yutani are trying to do, we're going to take the act, we're going to be proactive, and we're going to try and stop this from happening. This book is that after they've already got a sample of it and they're already experimenting with it, it's the two characters saying, no, we're going to resist. We're going to basically be like freedom fighters against Weyland-Yutani's like, bioweapon division. Which is actually kind of funny because obviously one of the things that I love is Resident Evil, and that's very much got let's fight the evil corporation who's making the bioweapons thing. Less aliens, more zombies and monsters, but it's that kind of thing. The art is actually really good, especially when it's dealing with ships and horror stuff and landscapes. I do think the faces are typically good. There's one or two cases of the lips just being a bit too puckered for my taste. I'd call it porn lips, for lack of a better term. But it's just a couple of panels. For the most part, it's nice and clean. Has a lot of deep blacks and shadows, that kind of thing. It flows really well. I read this quite quickly. You've got this thing where they're walking past other androids who are like, security guard droids, and like, because this was one of the things that was in the game. One of the enemies you had to fight occasionally were the androids who kind of went evil. So it's dealing with this kind of like, they're almost the SS of Weyland-Yutani, or these droids who are walking around and storming the place. Amanda gets shot at one point in the shoulder. They're using acid-tipped bullets. They're using alien blood in their bullets. It's a whole thing. But there's action scenes. There's rockets being fired. There's ships blasting off. The action's very well drawn. Very good pace to the art, which I really really like. So the end of the issue is that they've located where this station is from this mission where Amanda got shot. She got inside. They had to do this big thing where she jumped out the window onto the other ship to escape because the droids were after her. So they're on their way to this station and they're following this colony ship called the Gasper, basically to hide their location. Right? They're sort of try to shadow that. So that only that ship, shows up on radar. Well, radar's not the right word. I think space, but
I mean, it's close enough.
Yeah, you know what I mean. The sensors. But we see towards the end of the issue, while they're in cryosleep, that there's aliens on this ship. Not their ship, but the other ship. What's it called?
Yeah.
The Gaspar. And when they wake up, they're like, "Hey, why is that ship still in front of us?" Because they were only meant to follow it for so long. Because it was meant to go somewhere else, right? It wasn't meant to go to the station they're going to. And they scan it and be like, okay, there's meant to be 500 people on that ship, including kids. Why is there no life signs? Are they all dead? What's happening? So they basically noticed that, and then that's kind of a cliffhanger. It's why are they all dead? Why is no one there? So the question becomes, why was there already aliens on that ship? That's a mighty big coincidence. And I would question whether or not, because it wasn't really a colony ship, it was a cover for a ship that was going to this station in the first place, that William Giuttani sent, maybe with organisms on board. Things went bad.
Just to see what happened.
As you do. I'm sure we'll get some answers next issue. But, no, it's really good. Joe, it's funny, I'm not, it's funny that I've just done Buffy and Alien back to back, because I'm not typically someone who likes a lot of extended media, of the things I enjoy movie and TV wise.
No, you're not.
But Aliens and Predator, for some reason, Dark Horse has done a really good job of, not that everyone's been good, I'm sure there's been bad Alien and Predator comics over the years, because they've been going for a long time, but for some reason, there's some really good Alien and Predator comics. I highly recommend the complete Fire and Stone and then the complete Life and Death. Get the complete collections of them because they're confusing to read if you don't. They'll all be in order. It's nice and easy. But they're really, really good stories. And I think this, I really like Defiance, and I think this is a nice natural sort of follow up to it. I love that it brings in Isolation as well. It feels like one of the jokes I've always heard about Friday the 13th is that it'd be cool to do a movie, probably not now because it's been too long now, but a movie where like 4 or 5 of the final girls team up to try and take on Jason. Right?
Yeah.
This is kind of that mentality where the survivor of Defiance and the survivor of Isolation are teaming up to fight back. And that's a neat thing.
Yeah, sure.
So, I had fun. I'm in for issue 2.
Cool.
So, I don't actually know how many issues this is. Defiance was 12. I don't know if this is 6, 12, whatever.
I feel like I made the right choice passing on this, not because of its quality, just because of previous characters.
Yeah, I don't think you need to have played Isolation, although if you like video games, I'd recommend it. It's a good game. But I would recommend you should read Defiance first, though.
Yeah.
Makes
sense.
First. But, no. Aliens Resistance, this one is, rather. It's very good. So, cool. So that actually was the last book of the week, which means we can get to rating and picking, or I should rate this actually, shouldn't I?
You should, yes.
8.5. So that'll take us on to picking our favourite moments of the week: best panel/moment, best art, best cover, and top 5 books. So, what's your panel/moment?
It's from Spider-Man. It's the building shouldn't go runch, complete with the correct amount of ends from the sound effect.
I can't argue with that.
I did really like that.
I can't argue with that. So I just looked through Buffy because we know it's going to be one from Buffy.
Of course it is.
Oh dear.
Sorry, I was just having a flick through to see if there was anything else while you were talking about Alien.
That's fine. I haven't had time to think. You know what? Because it shocked me how dark and violent it was, I'm going with the melting vampire face. That was gory as shit.
I can't argue with that.
That is much gorier than anything you'd actually see on the show, and I think that's one of the benefits is you can go a bit darker.
You can get away with that.
Yeah. Not that it's rated for adults. It's not going to be full of F-bombs. But
to be honest, you'd probably get away with that on the show today.
Maybe today you would, yeah, but not at the time. But comic art being comic art, you can go a bit further with the gruesome stuff.
You can, yeah.
So yeah, I'll say that panel. Although I was tempted to go with that one of just Buffy looking at them, when it looked see them together.
Okay, yeah.
Because it was just the art just captured her likeness so much that it was tempting. But so that's my pal/moment. Best cover of the week. What are you picking?
I'm torn between two actually. So one is the Buffy variant by Wada.
That's very good.
I really like that. And the other one, I think what I'm actually going to go with though is the Star Wars cover, which obviously you've not seen, but it's by Jamal Campbell, so you can be sure it looks good.
Yes. I actually really like that Buffy variant as well. I chose the main cover over it though, which is funny because Connor hates this cover, and
yeah,
I'm going to give it my cover of the week. I actually really like this art. So
yeah, I don't understand this. I think it's hideous. I said to Pete that if I walked into the shop and I couldn't get a variant cover and I had to get that regular cover, I'd have gone, forget it, I'm getting it digitally.
No. I actually really like the cover. Matthew Taylor's the artist in the main cover. I like it. He's doing the covers for at least the first four, probably more.
Yes, and so is Wada. So I've already spoke to the guy in my shop who's happy to set them aside for me.
Yeah. Whereas I specifically told my shop, give me the main covers, because sometimes the other publishers are kind of weird where they say, no, if you've got it pre-ordered, you get this cover. I'm like, no, I want the main cover. Give me the main cover. I know Dark Horse is guilty of that. Often their cover B's the subscriber variant.
Right.
And I'm like, no. They're giving the main one. Unless the subscriber one's better, in which case, yeah, give me that. But
my shop doesn't do it. It always gives you the standard cover unless you ask.
Yeah. Well, I mean, where I get them from probably might not do that as well. I'm just, in case, I was like, here.
Just want to be sure.
Yes. So that's cover. Best art of the week. What you got?
This is Avengers. Sorrentino.
Yeah.
You can't, as much as you didn't really like the issue that much, you can't disagree with me on this too much.
What's annoying? Like, I'd probably go with Alien if it wasn't for just for those one or two panels of the lips being a bit iffy.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I really like the art in Buffy, but do I like it more than Sorrentino? It's weird because it's tied to a story I didn't like, but
but objectively, the art alone is very good.
Yeah, Sorrentino for Avengers. I can't argue with
it. This is how I felt with Batman a couple of issues ago, where I hated everything in the writing, but then that Gerard's art was just fantastic.
All right, what's your top 5 books?
So number 1's Avengers, 2 Spider-Man, 3 Star Wars, 4 Hulk. Oh God. Now, it's down to one of the issue 1s for number 5.
Oh, I mean, it has to be Guardians, right? Actually, no, you've not said Buffy yet.
Yeah, no, it's one. That's what I mean. One of the issue 1s. It's Buffy or Guardians.
I thought you meant it was going to be Guardians or Crypt of Shadows. I'm like, that's pretty easy choice, to be honest.
No, that's a one shot. Yeah. I wasn't even counting that.
Yeah.
I'll give it to Buffy, just because I actually knew all the characters in that.
All right, my number 1 is Buffy, issue 1. Shocking no one. My number 2 is actually Aliens Resistance. My number 3 is Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. My number 4 is Immortal Hulk. My number 5... My number 5 is Guardians of the Galaxy, issue 1.
Okay.
So, yeah, I wasn't like super hot on it, but like it's definitely the better one after those other 4 that I said. So
you had a better week than last week.
I did, no. I mean, do you know what's funny? I was worried that I was feeling too negative because obviously I was a bit more lukewarm in Guardians because I didn't know the characters, and Uncanny, Avengers were back to back, and I was like, okay, I'm glad Spider-Man was in between.
At the end, though.
Sorry,
you had an upswing at the end.
I did have an upswing at the end. So that was good. So yeah, I did actually remember to ask on Twitter for folks to tell us their favourites of the week. What's funny though is that because we're recording this a day early, and I sort of did this very last minute, it really wasn't enough time for a lot of responses. However, so credit to at Thunder Fury FGC for telling us they like Guardians of the Galaxy. likes what it's setting up, but also did give some love to Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man as well. So far, Tom Taylor has a great track record with me. To be fair, I've only read 3 issues by him so far, but one was the Batman Annual number 3, and then 2 Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man issues.
I mean,
so
if you started with that Batman Annual, I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of work for Tom Taylor to live up to.
Get some all-new Wolverine in you, and then we can talk.
But
from
that's quite a high starting point.
Yeah. We also get some love from Guardians of the Galaxy from Snake of Talons. So there you go. So yeah. Normally I give people a full day to respond to that, but I was like, oh shit, we're recording that today.
You forgot, didn't you?
And it was like an hour and a half before we recorded, so
yeah.
didn't have a whole lot of chats. But hey, so that has been the episode. That is episode 5 of Elsewhere in the Multiverse, where we talk about comic books and stuff. You can, of course, next week we'll be talking about stuff. That sentence made no sense. Basically, I remembered that I need to tell you what's coming. This is actually kind of a light week coming up, because it's a week 5. We have Amazing Spider-Man issue 14. We have West Coast Avengers issue 7, and we have Captain America issue 7. We also have Age of X-Men Alpha issue 1, which we'll all try, see how that goes. Connor has at least Star Wars Dr. Aphra issue 28, so you can look forward.
Oh, cool. I'm just trying to scan next week's books, or well, this week's now, kind of really, just to check that nothing's kind of moved or slipped in that we didn't know about.
Yeah. And outside of Marvel, we have Quantum Age issue 6, which is the end of the miniseries, the Black Hammer miniseries. So we'll talk about that. We have Skyward issue 10. We talked about issues 1 through 9 back in the first episode of this show, so you can go back and check out what we thought there. But issue 10's out next week. And then we have issue 1 from Dynamite of Peter Cannon Thunderbolt, which is a Kieron Gillen book, which Connor's insisting we try. So, I mean, we have, 8 books in total. 7 of them are I'm reading. So
yeah, I'm seeing there's an issue 1 from Dark Horse called Weird, WYRD.
Oh.
Let's see what this is.
Maybe we'll try this.
There are problems, cases too strange for U.S. law enforcement to solve. Peter Weird is the one who solves them, for a fee, of course. An unaging, invincible detective with a penchant for the strange. Weird is the one the government calls when things go very badly and very strange.
Maybe we'll try it.
Yeah, it sounds interesting enough to give a first issue on a quiet week.
We'll see how it goes. But yeah, so by all means, let us know what you thought of your comics this week. What you thought of all the comics we talked about. What did we not talk about? You can like and subscribe. You can support us, of course, by going over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, and you can support us for as little as $1 per month. You can also buy merchandise now, believe it or not. There's links in the description to the merch stores, both in the US and the UK. You can also check out Comics from the Multiverse, which is our DC Comics podcast. It's the equivalent to this show. Same format, me, Connor, also Matt, though. We talk about DC Comics every week. And then we also have Television from the Multiverse, which is DC TV shows with me and Connor. We talk about those every week. So you can check out that stuff. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Guys on the Twitters at DC Comics Podcast, which is not the one that's on the screen. I'm a silly sausage.
Shambles.
@mailed_fuzz is also valid, though. That's just the general Mail Fuzz Twitter.
I mean, it works, but all I'm saying is 3 attempts at an intro. Can't even get the right things on the screen.
Shut up.
Disgraceful.
Shut up. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading comics. Keep reading Marvel comics. But remember that assembly is required.